All right, I'm back in literally a couple minutes since I left off. Who knows today? It might be several minutes or hours or days since you last saw this edition, this discussion of the invisible hand. So this is invisible hand part 2. All right. So last time we talked about producers knowing their marginal costs, and how they changed with the quantity of whatever it is that they produce, and then comparing to price, they know they can predict what profit they're likely to make. All right, and so the second point to be made here about the invisible hand is, okay, so what's the first point? The first point was that it minimizes the cost of making the equilibrium quantity of the good. Okay, and the second point is that it efficiently allocates resources across industries. Okay, so that, how does it do that? Well, because people are selfish and greedy, and not all, of course, but many motivated, trying to make as much money as possible. Again, why? That's not so bad in most cases, because as much money as that they can make in a competitive environment is not very much money at all. Okay? They've got to try to max out in order to cover all their expenses and have a little bit left to live on, right? To cover all their opportunity costs. All right, so folks that know their marginal cost line, which is pretty much everybody, okay, can compare that to the publicly knowable price of anything. Thus, on that basis, to know what they would be best off producing, okay, to know where their profit opportunity is greatest. And they may shift industries when the prices change, and therefore change the signal of which one is most profitable. Okay, so we get the correct resource allocation across different industries because producers can know where their profit rate, based on what they know they're able to do, is highest. Okay, so then a price changes, that signals to many potential producers a potential profit change, and if that's more than what they're making, in the industry that they're already in, they'll say, I'm switching to my industry, which is a lower profit industry than this other one, based on this price that I just saw change. Okay, so nobody kicked them, nobody picked them up, nobody sent them a letter from the government saying, your resources are now more useful in industry B than industry A. Move it! No, nobody said anything to anybody. Somebody that was interested in maximizing their own well-being, that's all, may have been all that they cared about, said, I can make more money by putting my money and my efforts and my resources and my know-how into industry B than industry A that I'm in now. I'm going. The invisible hand of the desire to maximize well-being. All right? So, when one industry seems to yield more profit than another industry, probably because of a recent price change in one or the other of them, some resources for marginal producers. What is a marginal producer? Is that somebody that's poor at what they're doing? Maybe. Okay. Maybe they're the ones that in an industry where the price has fallen that are going to suffer the most trying to get by at that new price, and they're looking for something different to do. Not that they used to be just barely getting by, and now the price of what they're selling went down, and now they're going to really struggle, and they're thinking, well, where else should I go? Okay, in that sense, it's a marginal producer. In another sense, what does a marginal producer mean? It means somebody capable of doing this other thing, the industry B instead of industry A. Not everybody in industry A, once seeing that the profit rate of B relative to A has changed, is going to even consider making that move, because maybe they just don't know enough about that other industry to know that they can make good money there. Again, they know their marginal costs for what they are doing. If they have no idea how to make this other product in industry B, they may not have any idea whether even with the price change in A versus B, whether they can make more money in B. And in the case of some of those marginal producers, either in terms of ability or in terms of suffering as a result of a price change, they're not all going to go. And that's what we mean by marginal producer. You see what happens if you're in industry A and somebody that is a marginal producer leaves, right, for the now more attractive industry B, either because of a lower price in A or a higher price in B. What's that going to do? That's going to lower the profit rate by making it more competitive in industry B. It's going to increase the profit rate in industry A. Okay, so then people in industry A are saying, that's the only way I can make a living. Somebody else please leave. I can't go. Okay, so they're urging others to leave because this is the only thing I know and I love it. I'm not making much money now at this current price. Please, some competitors leave so that the price will go up. I can make a living again. And typically, the free market obliges them. Right? There almost always are. That was a tongue twister I didn't anticipate. There almost always are marginal producers of anything. And there's the ones that shift from one industry to the next when profit rates change. So sort of like our marginal cost principle that we talked about in the previous edition here in Invisible Hand video number 1. In Invisible Hand video number 2, the point here is that profit rates will be equal across producers. Right? Invisible Hand number 1 was about marginal costs being equal, okay? And that would happen naturally, and that would cause equilibrium quantity to produce the minimum total cost. Okay, now we're saying that profit differences invisibly signal, because they come with a strong incentive, which is to make more money, which is invisibly signal producers that can move from one industry to another to do so. And that's good because the differences in the profit equalized, right, lower the profit in the one industry a little bit, but it's higher than where they were before. And by them leaving the industry they were in, profit rate goes up there. So the natural tendency of business people to try to make as much money as they can in a competitive environment with fully informed buyers and sellers. Okay, so we're talking an honest profit. We're not talking a profit by sleight of hand or by fraud or by deceit, but an all-knowing, everything, all out on the board, fully informed, and remember, we're talking about competition, and one of the key assumptions is perfect information and easy entry, easy exit. So under those circumstances, and if those circumstances are lacking, hopefully the government, okay, or maybe nonprofits or some other method, increase the information that's out there so producers can know all that they need to know to wisely allocate their resources, and consumers can know all that they can know to wisely expend their limited income on the mix of products that they value the most. All right, so the profit equalization principle, if you will, signals where the most money is to be made, and that maximizes wealth to society. Again, mind-boggling. No bureaucracy, no letters from the government, no commands. It's all entirely based on freedom. It's called the free market for a reason. We don't call it the free market just because we don't encumber it, whatever the it is, because the market isn't somebody we can command to do things. We can encumber the process of buying and selling with rules if we want to. The free market means that we are, as Milton Friedman aptly said in his many videos, which are well worth looking up on the YouTube, free to choose. Producers, people as producers, are free to choose what to produce. People as consumers are free to choose what to consume. That process, with few exceptions, maximizes wealth to society, minimizes costs, maximizes wealth to society. And what are the few exceptions? Not enough competition, poor information, externalities, positive or negative, which, remember, that's the same thing as spillovers. Okay? Few exceptions, small exceptions mostly. Yeah, there's an occasional big exception, okay, where it's obvious that the government needs to take action because the difference between marginal social cost is way bigger than marginal private cost. Or somebody managed to somehow corner the market on something and become a monopolist, and they're just rampaging and pillaging by being able to withhold this product from everybody unless they pay some amazingly high price. Anyway, I'll stop there because we have yet to talk about the monopoly chapter. So yeah, there are definitely grounds for government intervention, but acknowledging that we might not be able to fine tune it right to perfection. So if it's already close, might want to leave it alone. Okay, and of course that's why we have a political process, for better or for worse, because that's the arena in which we decide which things to mess with and which things to leave alone. And that's why Thomas Jefferson, our third president and author of the Declaration of Independence, and said that we desperately needed, if this country was going to last and be prosperous for a long time, we desperately needed to inform the people to be wise choosers of their representatives and of what limits to place on where their government could go or not go. Okay, so because we know that pursuit of self-interest is going to be out there, we could wring our hands and say, oh, why are people so greedy and so selfish? As they say in New York, forget about it. It's just, don't bother. People are going to pursue self-interest. Again, it's a very competitive world. You better be pursuing self-interest. Most of the time, you might just get run over. Okay, so given that that's what people are typically going to have to do, and many are typically and normally inclined to do that, what we positively, definitely need to have, are rules of the game that harness those natural inclinations to pursue self-interest to move us forward as a society. Right? We're much more likely to move forward as a society, as a country, as a community, if we harness natural powerful forces, okay, than to massively suppress them. I said the word massively on purpose because I said, externalities, not enough competition. We might have to suppress a few of the natural inclinations at the margin some of the time, to make sure that it's as competitive as it should be. Take, for example, somebody that says, I can make some more money in this industry if I don't have so many competitors. Duh, right? So they might use their political clout. See, that's where most of the bad things that big businesses come from. Okay? Not the use of their economic clout as big businesses, but the use of their political clout to the political process. Anyway, these businesses can sometimes use their political clout, paying off their cronies in the government, contributing to their campaigns to influence the decisions that they make, paying them either legally through campaign contributions, in some countries, some of the times, even in ours, some of the time, illegal bribes, paying them to change a comma or something in a rule somewhere, or may rather than shall. Something that the vast majority of us never see, but it amounts to millions of dollars of cost or savings to businesses. You see, the use of their political clout, changing the rules of the game to favor them, can make them a lot of money. But that harms the rest of us. Okay? So, for example, a company wishing not to compete against foreigners to make a product, because they could sell it for more if they didn't, may try to lobby for trade restrictions. Oh, it's so unfair what these foreigners are doing. Their low prices are low because of some unfair, unnatural advantage that they have. It's unfair to trade with them on even terms. We have to put some tariffs on them or quotas or something to. Yeah, you can always find some examples. That does sound pretty unfair. But in many cases, there's nothing unfair about it. The other country just has comparative advantage in what they're doing, and they just don't want to compete with them because they know they will make more money if they don't have to compete with them. You see, but that creates a misallocation of our resources. We'd be far better off to buy the cheaper product from them. Of course, the producers of that product in our country don't like that message. They like what they're doing. They'd much rather go boop on election day or write a little check to somebody that they might do their bidding through the government to make more money at what they're already doing, rather than to not make so much money because the foreigners make it better than they do and have to find another industry in which to set up shop. Right? That's the danger of the political process, is there's so many things upon which to base your vote, but you may be tempted to base it on one thing. I better vote for President so-and-so or Representative X because he's going to support my plea, along with my other members of my industry, for a tariff on my foreign competitors. And that'll make us, all of us producers of this product, make us more money. Now, the consumer surplus loss will be more than the producer surplus gain, so it's bad for the countries to do that. They recognize that. That's why we have free trade agreements. Okay, because we know we're naturally inclined in many countries to do the bidding of businesses that want protection from their foreign competitors. And when we all do that internationally, it's the detriment of all of us. We're far better off as a world, as a nation, to have free trade. Okay, but we know the political process is somewhat biased against that. So we create free trade agreements. Okay, and I'm not making a blanket statement about free trade agreements. There's things called free trade agreements that are managed trade agreements. Okay, so the World Trade Organization is pretty good. There's not too much managed trade built into that, but NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, that's thousands of pages long. And just to briefly expressing opinion, this probably has done a lot more good than harm in terms of causing Mexico, Canada, United States to move resources from industries in their respective countries from where they're better off importing and making more of something else. But there's, you don't need 2,000 pages to lower trade barriers and let people reshuffle what they're doing to move resources from comparative disadvantage to comparative advantage. Where the other umpteen hundreds of pages come from? Managing trade. Okay, so but politics, the process of forming those free trade agreements shows us, because of the appearance of these extra 1,000, 1,500, 1,600 pages over what it would take just to define what we mean by not having any trade barriers and what happens when somebody puts one in anyway and what we're going to do to enforce or stop them. That probably takes a couple hundred pages. What are the pages after that? Well, those are proof that individual businesses, individual industries, the collection of businesses in given industries can and do wield political clout. They can muster enough votes in Congress to block these agreements from passing. 10 votes from industry A plus 10 votes from industry B plus 10 votes from industry C plus 10 votes from industry D, each that compete against imports. Suddenly you've got enough representatives to block the passage of the free trade agreement. And suddenly it's not a free trade agreement anymore, even though it's called that. It's sad. So anyway, you have to evaluate things that are called free trade agreements and what they actually say as to whether they're more trade enabling than trade disabling. All right, on that note, because my mouth is dry again and I want to view my script a little bit more, I'm going to shut this off. And I see from the time that Visible Hand 1 was about 20 minutes and Invisible Hand 2 is about 19. So, hey, about even chunks of a yakety yak on critical economic concepts, the kind of thing that Thomas Jefferson wanted us all to know, because he wanted government of the people, by the people, for the people, a phrase from Abraham Lincoln, to work for a long, long time. He knew that it wouldn't, if we were not well informed, that we would vote for things that were not wise. All right, I'll see you back in a couple minutes to round this out.